Hello everybody, I would like to welcome you to the next lecture in our series Reflections on Architecture, looking at Polish architecture scene. Today we are happy to have here our dear colleague, architect and teacher, actually, if I may put it like this, and writer, architect Bartosz Haduch from NArchitekTURA office, which is a kind of wordplay, architecture and nature. As you have probably recognized on the webpage of the studio, they are doing interesting works in all the possible fields, starting with architecture exhibitions and buildings and actually landscape or urban planning as well in a smaller scale. So I'm quite sure that the lecture today will be very interesting and inspiring. Bartosz is coming from Krakow, so which is the city quite near to Slovakia, so I think we will hear also some things we have in common, let's hope. So I don't want to talk more about things that will be displayed more precisely by Bartosz, and so I pass now the baton to you, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much. Dobry wieczór. I will try to tell you a little bit about the work of my office NArchitekTURA, and architecture. Thank you very much for inviting me and having me here. I was here in Bratislava something like 10 years ago, and it's good to be back, good to see how many things changed, how many things didn't a lot. I really liked stay right here because I came yesterday, so I visited some places. And I'm going to show you some of my office's project. As you see, the name NArchitekTURA and architecture, it can be translated to different languages, and it's a combination of nature and architecture. When I started the office some years ago, it was the idea to have it to do it mostly, you know, to focus on public spaces, landscape design, and this kind of connection between nature and architecture. It turned out also that we started to do many projects connected with art. So fortunately, we can also decode the word art in this name. I will try to show you our approach to designing in different scales, and also different projects that we did throughout the last years. So as you can see right here, there are many projects, and you can see that we do many different things from small scale design to some urban design, landscape design, and large public buildings. But right here you may see many unrealized projects and some kind of concepts that didn't came into real life. So some are competitions, some are direct commissions, and so on. But I just wanted to show you the kind of a combination of different scales and different projects that we do. But you can see some renders right here, and next I will focus mostly on the built projects and realized projects. But let me start with the project that it all started for me. That is a project that I did while I was a student, I think something like your age. And it is a competition project, which is called Embassy of Europe, and it was a competition, large international competition, that I participated in many years ago. I kind of sent it this vision and a little bit forget about it. Then it turned out that I managed to win this competition. And it was a time that, you know, in this jury of the project, there were my then idols from firms like Zaha Hadid Architects, OMA, Rem Koolhaas, or UN Studio Ben van Berkel. So it was a kind of a, let's call it, beginning for me, because then I started to work abroad, and I had some chance to visit nice offices around and travel a lot, visiting architecture and also learning about architecture. But as I told you, you know, I think starting in competition during your studies and just being brave in your architectural visions, I think it's crucial at the time to just try. I mean, later on it's also the same, that you still try, and only part of the things that you do came into fruition like a realized project. But I mean, it's always worth trying, not only in architecture but also in life. And as you see, these are the drawings that are handmade. So I wanted to show you these old drawings also because it kind of illustrates my way to architecture. At first I wanted to be an artist, to do some paintings and these kind of things. Then it turned out that architecture is a nice field that I can combine the things that, different things that are in my interest. But this connection between art and architecture turned out to be quite crucial in my later works and works by my practice in architecture. So these are the only, you know, imaginary drawings or renderings I will show you, and the rest, what I will show you, these are only the real things. I also decided to do it because I'm much more interested in real life than this virtual one. So the next drawings or the next projects all will be realized. So I'll start from the exhibitions and this connection between architecture and art. The first project I will show you, this is a project we did for a Wawel Castle in Krakow. It's called Masterpieces from the Lanskoroński Collection. And as you may see in the first picture, sometimes we design spaces for quite a lot of works of art and so on. But this time we decided to do a project just for 3 works of art that were hired from different museums. And the central one is a masterpiece by Paolo Uccello, San George and the Dragon. And as you may see, the way of conceiving the spaces from the beginning, it's kind of a reaction to the existing interior. So if you may see, we started our design with kind of responding to this existing arch, existing vault. And what we did in our project, it's kind of an extension of this vault. Then you may see this line. It's kind of an extension of the existing interior. But it's made with a little bit different material, and then its shape and its form, it's a kind of way of thinking how to separate the people from the valuable artworks. But also you may see that some descriptions and some illuminations are hidden in this form. The other thing is the background wall. It's made out of copper, white copper. If you were in Krakow, and maybe you can remind the placement of the Wawel Castle. It's located on a high hill and it's a little bit above the old city. So at this exact height, the only buildings that you see, these are the spires and the high roofs of the building, and they are all made out of copper. So that's why we used this material. And that's the basic representation of the thing that we did. So we have 3 paintings. We have the wall, then we have the plywood form that separates the visitors from the paintings, and then we combined it in this kind of axiomatic view. So next you will see also this kind of interactions between the old architecture right here, the existing architecture, and the new architecture, and this extension of the existing vault and then extension inform our new intervention. And some interior views. The next project, the first one I show you was for 3 paintings. This one is for only 1 painting. It was located also in Wawel Castle. And it is a complicated story of one painting of Rembrandt that was owned by the Polish guy many years ago. Right now it's located in Frick Collection in New York, but his story is quite fascinating. If you have some time, you can search for it in the internet. But anyway, during the reparation works and in Frick Collection, it was possible to hire it for 1 summer to Poland, and that's how it ended in Wawel Castle, and we were asked to do an intervention. And also right here, the context was quite important, the context of the place, how we deal with the historical chambers inside, and also how we deal with the Rembrandt's artworks. So as you may see, we used the curved lines, and the curved lines were kind of inspired by the detailed zoom in of the Rembrandt paintings. If you zoom in some of his drawings or some of his paintings, you will see those curved lines very delicately done. So that's how we conceived the plan of our project. But also, if you take a look at the paintings of Rembrandt, they are mostly illuminated from the left side with a very delicate and very soft light. So right here in front of the picture, we kind of wanted to recreate this idea of the sunset, low light, and we did it by a specially designed lamp. So on one side you have this, let's call it sunset, and on the other side you have just only one painting by Rembrandt. Also, the kind of way we finished this plywood wall, you may see that there is a certain coherence between the colors you can find on the picture, and then you can find it on the background. We left the floor as it was, so it's like a combination between old and new. And right here you can also see some pictures from those 2 holes. So this one is seen from that hole, and this one from that one. So it's quite complicated, of course, to do such a thing from solid wood and from plywood. So there were some technical constraints and so on. But then, from the drawings to realization phase, we were kind of concerned how to do it to kind of blend in smoothly into the historical architecture. But then also, when you see at the presentation of the projects, we also focused on it, how to do it in a, let's call it some kind of a historical way. So even these photographs are framed like historical paintings and so on. So we wanted to do them in a kind of a non-conventional way, I'll put it this way. And right here you can see some details of this sunset light that we wanted to have in this interior. The third project I will show you, it's also conceived for the masterpiece painting by Sandro Botticelli. It's called History of Virginia, and it was made in the Royal Castle in Warsaw last year. And right here you can see how it looks like. So this time we also were about to do some new thing in very specific historical background. This is a royal castle and a chamber designed by Giovanni Battista Quadro. Of course, during the Second World War, it was totally destroyed and then rebuilt through the original drawings. But it's a kind of a reconstruction. But anyway, when we started the project, the client just told us, okay, just come to see the place, but I have to warn you, it's quite complicated. I would never imagine that it's that complicated, because you have 3 pillars just inside of the space, and it's really extremely decorated. So what to do in such a space, which was conceived as a Renaissance architecture, and then we kind of dig out in this history of Renaissance architecture. We focused on this ideas of axis and symmetry and so on, and then we kind of reacted to the existing interior. So you have these vaults, and they form some kind of a sinusoid, I will put it this way. So what we did, we reverse it this way, so it's a continuation. Those arches and then those lines created by our office were kind of in a constant flux and a constant interaction. And that is a form that it's, let's call it, focused more on architecture, but then on the sides, you have spaces that are connected mostly on art. So this differentiation between when we show it as an architecture and then on the other hand the places where the artworks should be, you know, play the first role, are quite important for us. So right here on that side you may see the famous painting by Botticelli. And I will also encourage you to follow the story of this painting, because it's made like in a very cinematic way. So it's kind of a few scenes on one painting, and it's quite fascinating. So we also were obliged to make a description in this way and to show on different groups the idea of conceiving this painting. And right here you also see on this axiomatic view how complicated the space was with 3 columns just inside, and how we reacted to this. I will also tell you about the color, because we always try to choose the color in a quite contextual or conceptual way. We never use it in a way just, you know, because we like it, but we analyzed the colors of the ceiling. And these colors with those clouds and so on, it seems like an exemplification of the sky, but it's a sky during the day. So we kind of darkened all of those colors to make the same sky, reflected sky, but during the night. So this reflection is also interaction between the separate colors were quite important to us, and we named also these projects as a twofold sky. And right here you can also see this idea which was quite important for us. So right here you see this front view, let's see it, that right here you can focus a little bit about on space and on architecture, but then those side walls, they are mostly, then we mostly concentrate on paintings by Renaissance masterpieces. And the other obstruction in this project was that we didn't have any possibility to illuminate the projects from the outside, so also we had to conceive a way to illuminate it from this kind of windows. And right here the main masterpiece by Sandro Botticelli. As you may see, I also kind of like this front perspective and front way of showing architecture. It reminds me a little bit like you look someone straight in the eye. And as I told you before, the way of representation of the projects, even from the way of concept design till the final photography, it's quite important for me, and I always wanted to have it as a kind of a one concise and very precise way of showing architecture. Right now we move a little bit to the Far East. Obviously you all know the famous wave by Kazushika Hokusai, and we had the privilege to do a project to different works from Hokusai. And that's how we, that's the plan, and these are the spaces that we had to deal with. There are of course many artworks that you can see in this space, but I would like to show you also the plan of the projects, because we conceived also the plan as a way of creating, let's do it, it's similar a little bit also to a drawing. So when you see those walls, right here, right here, right here, these are a little bit similar to the strokes on the pencil or the paint, or maybe they are similar a little bit to wood carving, because this is mostly a space dedicated to prints of Hokusai. And on the next slide I will show you the way we treated this project. We were inspired not only by Hokusai's art, but also we were inspired by Junichiro Tanizaki book, In Praise of Shadows. So as you can see right here, the context was mostly to do those spaces in a very dark, subtle way, with focusing on the separate pictures and wood prints. But also we wanted to create a kind of spaces that were similar to this stone dry gardens, which you can see in Kyoto and in different parts of Japan. Of course, Japan was also for many years quite important inspiration for me. And these stone gardens, which in Japanese are called karisansui, were made in different parts of these exhibitions. But it's also the same strategy, let's go it this way. Right here, you can see a little bit of architecture, but when you focus on art, it's mostly on more neutral black background. So it's a different approach right there. And right here, the slightest detail was inspired by Japanese culture, Japanese art, and Hokusai's artworks. But even the way we treat those, let's call it paravans and walls, they were painted silver, and later on in the other hall they were painted gold. So you can find this kind of treatment of the background of the pictures also in Japanese art, and this technique is called maki-e. So that's one view. That's the view from the upper side. As you may imagine, we also wanted this new architecture to be as slim as possible. So at the edges we have something like 2.5 centimeters, not much more. And then in the other room we used the golden paravans, let's call it this way. That's the other room. And I will also tell you about the important aspect of the project, because maybe at first glance it seems quite spectacular, let's go it this way, but we wanted it to be also very, let's call it environmental friendly. So we encouraged some firm just to lend this kind of a few tons of natural stones for the course of the exhibition, and they were delivered only for those few months, and later on they came back to the same company and were just sold as a kind of a recycled project. So it's like thinking also about the using of the resources. So it's not only that the museum pays a lot of money for the stones that they will not be able to use later on, but we wanted to make it this way that these stones that were used during this exhibition later on will end up in different gardens in Poland, maybe even abroad. So it was quite important for us. And we kind of always like to design from the macro scale to the micro scale, and even to focus on the slightest detail. So this detail is directly taken from this picture right here. Right here you have it's a room that is dedicated for 5 pictures that shows ghosts. And right here you have some kind of a division of the wood seen on this picture. So we took exactly the same division of wood and we made a balustrade out of it. So also the kids can see it from the lower level. And right here in the space that is dedicated to waterfalls, we decided to paint also the walls in this kind of a dark blue color, and also even the bench, we designed the bench in a way that it kind of resembles it's a kind of an interpretation of water, let's go it this way. And right now, the biggest exhibitions that we did so far, it's conceived to the Polish important artist Stanisław Wyspiański. And it had something like 2,300 square meters, so it was really a large space. And right here we kind of followed the strategy of different spaces to differentiate the spaces, and it was followed by the works of art that we were about to show. As you may see, it's kind of a huge space to arrange. So it is a project. It was realized in National Museum in Krakow. So we wanted to emphasize those axes that were designed by the first architects of the buildings. Of the building, and sometimes these axes have something like 30 meters or 40 meters and so on. So it was quite important to us right here to show the spaciousness of the museum and the character of the existing rooms. And we started from that space. The artist, Wyspiański, always dreamt about creating architecture, but he never did it in a large scale. But he left a lot of sketches that were kind of concentrated on making architecture that is made out of this kind of organic shapes, organic patterns, and so on. He did it in a way in a Franciscan church in Krakow, so you can also see it right there. But then it's just painted on a wall, and right here we wanted to make it in a 3D pattern. Let's go this way. So we followed the sketches of Wyspiański. We started from the 3 layers, and he often combined the geometrical patterns. You can see it in the background. And then ended up with some kind of patterns that were concentrated on some kind of existing flowers and so on. And it's also nice to see because the same flowers you can see nowadays, and to imagine how he was able to focus on those tiniest details of the existing flowers was quite fascinating for us. So as you see, we kind of fulfilled the dream of Wyspiański and created kind of an architecture, and that was the entrance to the exhibition. And then the other, let's call it spectacular spaces in this exhibition were conceived to the artworks that Wyspiański made to different churches. Most of them weren't realized, so we thought that maybe we should try to create so-called sacred chapels for this kind of artworks. And one problem that we had with this project, that some of the artworks that Wyspiański did had something like 7, 8, or even 8 meters in height. And so far there are not this kind of exhibition rooms, even I think in whole Poland. So we couldn't show them in a appropriate way as just hanging them on walls. So this time we invented this strategy that we will kind of make them a little bit closer to the viewer, and we light them down, like right here. There's a project for Lwów Cathedral, but then we will show them in a literal way, in a kind of a reflection. So this surface is just a kind of a mirror, and right here you see the artwork that you can get closed into. So that's the first chapel in this interior. Then there's a second chapel, and it's dedicated to the artworks that Wyspiański and Mehofer, because they were kind of friends but also rivals. They did this kind of projects for Mariacki church that it's right in front, that is one of the main features on the Krakow Market Square. And then right here we use the strategy of using exactly the same color like it is in the Mariacki church. It's the same color. But then we wanted to make this chapel as a kind of a frame for these pictures. And also we already had this space painted in this matte red, but in the project, I always thought, okay, I feel that it should be a little bit reflection right there, and I insisted on it. The people from there painted the space something like 3 times or 4 times, but then if you take a look at it, you have this reflection that shows some kind of cross. So it underlines a little bit this sacral character of this new space, and even these pictograms right here, they are taken from the decorations that were placed in the churches that Wyspiański conceived these artworks for. So it's you may kind of react to the context even in this kind of a small, very delicate graphic way. And I think it's quite important to think in that way in this kind of projects. Right here you have third cathedral, and it's made for 3 stained glass projects. So as you can see, when you enter the spaces, they seem quite neutral and so on, and then in the interior they are always a little bit different. And I was really surprised because there were some kind of concerts during this exhibition, and the group of people started to sing in the spaces. And I was really surprised because this place worked a little bit like a resonance cube, like you have like a resonance box that you have in violins, on guitars, and so on. So the sound in the center was distributed in a much more clearer and louder way than near the walls. So this kind of acoustic effects that we wished it would work a little bit like that, but then it's often with architecture that it works totally different, and sometimes it works much better, sometimes worse, but in this case I think it overcame our expectations. Sometimes we had this problem that we were given the list of the artworks, and it turned out that that's just no way to fill them into quite small exhibition halls. So we decided to create some huge mosaic of those paintings. They were all conceived for Franciscan Church in Krakow. So we made sure that they are placed right here at exactly the same height like they are realized in this church. So it's also the way of reacting to the nearest context. And right here is the same situation, that there was no space high enough to show the other projects of the stained glass windows. So right here we decided just to lay them down. And we used kind of an optical correction. So the first base is 5 centimeters lower than this one, and then 5 centimeters lower than this one, and so on. So we have the idea of the perspective in this interior, which was quite important to us. But then also, normally, if you hung the pictures on the wall, you would concentrate mostly just on one part of the picture. When you are able to walk near the picture, you can see the slightest detail. So this kind of allowing people to come quite close to the work of art was very important for us. And right here you can see the balcony, and from this balcony you can see it from the upper level. And then we were invited to create a library for the tons of books that the artist Wyspiański had. So we were about to create a library for some kind of almost 1,000 books. And one thing we knew, that the most important artwork that we're gonna show in this place is this one. It's called Apollo. Actually, it's the artwork that you can see live in Krakow. It's a stained glass window that it's located in one of the interiors in Krakow near the railway station. But then we thought, okay, we have one main artwork, and how can we deal with it? How can we react to it? So we thought that maybe it would be nice to create a space that it's kind of a continuation of the artwork. And if you see those lines right here, the black lines, we thought that this spaces, these shelves for the books, would be some kind of extension of this painting. And then the colors that we used, the blue one and the yellow one, that are also the exactly colors that are used by Wyspiański on this artwork. And right here we are lucky to work on 2 levels. So you have the balcony, the upper floor and the lower floor, so we can see this space from 2 levels. Right here it's the thing that I told you about. So as you see, those lines are kind of a continuation, an extension of the artwork. So here's the blue hall. And here's the yellow hall. The blue hall was for the books that Wyspiański owned, and the yellow hall was for the books that he wrote or designed. And right here, the shapes that we created in this interior. Okay, and now we switch to the thing that I wished I would do for most of my professional life, because I was always interested in the public space and in the greenery. I wish I would and I could design much more public spaces, but so far we did this one. And it's an interesting story because it is a project that kind of it costed, let me tell you, it costed, realization of the project costed something like 60,000 euros. So I don't think you could buy even a small flat for this money, but we managed to design a very small public space for it. And with this limited budget, we made a project that was published really worldwide, and it was shortlisted in the last edition of Mies van der Rohe Award. And it's the Great Synagogue Memorial Park in Oświęcim. As some of you may know, the history of Oświęcim and Auschwitz and the death camp and so on, the tragic history. It's a little bit connected to this place, and right here we were about to create a project that was on site of the former Jewish synagogue. It was fascinating for us because we always like to explore the histories, the new histories. Of course, most of us know something about war and so on, but this time we really were interested in getting deeper into this context, into this project and so on. And we decided to leave the space almost as it was, because this rebuilding this synagogue wouldn't make much more sense and wouldn't be possible in this budget. And what we did is just some kind of a public space that is based on few interventions, and you may see these interventions right here. Right here you can see the exhibition stand, which is a continuation of the previous project that I will show you later on. Then you see the pavement. The pavement is, you know, in a way it was inspired by the ruins that were discovered right after the demolition of the synagogue. And then you have the shape of the synagogue, the former synagogue, so you may see the scale as it was before. Right here the plan showing the context within the city. Right here you have the nice river. Right here you have the differentiation of the levels, and right here there's the intervention. So I really cared also about it that it's a sign within a city, that it's quite recognizable and a little bit different in form of shaping. But then you can see how it works according to different parts of the year. So it looks a little bit different in autumn, in winter, in spring. So in spring there are some daffodils all around and so on. So it's a kind of a place that is sensitive to the nature around. But also you may see that there are only few elements right there. So there's this exhibition stand, we designed some benches. Right here there are some small perforations that are inspired by the ornaments that were found in the documents, architectural documents of the old synagogue. Right here you have this water pond, which is frequently used just by local birds. Right here you can see how it looks like during the summer. Right here the water pond that I told you about. But here's the, let's call it one of the most important architectural features of this project. If you see each of these plates, it's a little bit different, and these are just reused stone plates that I found accidentally many years ago in some quarry. And these lines that you see right here, these are just cuts from the machine that cuts the smaller formats. So this is a reused material. The only thing that we did, we asked them to cut them in the same format, each of the slab. But then it was material that the client bought as a kind of a reused, not fully valuable material. But in a way, for me, it's the most beautiful part of the project, because each plate is different, and it's a design that was not made by architects. It would be, I don't think it would be possible by architects, even by AI, but it was made just by accident. You know, it was made by the machine that cuts smaller formats of the stone. So sometimes this kind of searching for the right material or waiting for an opportunity to use this kind of material, because I thought it for a long time, and it seemed perfect for this project. And of course there are many interpretations, and each one of you may have your own interpretation of these graphics. Sometimes it's an interpretation that tells about the layout of the old city that doesn't exist. Sometimes we speak about the paths of life that intersect in different ways. Sometimes you may see it as some kind of wounds and so on. But anyway, it's this kind of a micro intervention, and sometimes the projects work like that. The material, it's kind of crucial for the project, and I think it's one of these times. But this Memorial Park project was a continuation of the project that we did before, and right here I will show you this exhibition and education center, which is something like, I don't know, 200 meters from this park. And right here our interventions kind of went out of the interiors to the public space. So you may see even at the bench, this education center is frequented by a lot of groups and so on, and sometimes there are kids right there. So we designed the bench that right here can be used according to your height. Right here for children, right here for a little bit higher people and so on. But even those small interventions are quite important in this space. And then you may see the exhibition stands. You saw one that was in the Memorial Park. Right here you see the other one that is in the public square in front of this museum. Then the other one is in the interior. And each of them is finished with different material. The inspiration for the material was just from the artifacts that we find in this museum. So usually they are covered with some kind of patina, and they are either rusted or if they are from copper, so the copper is already in this state that it's already almost green and so on. So we thought maybe it would be nice to uncover all those layers in this metallic material. And I started to do it by myself. And I was so surprised that if you try to polish the rusted curtain steel, you will find this kind of material. It's shown on the other slide. So this uncovering of different layers, it seemed like a perfect inspiration, a perfect way of illustration of what we do right here. We uncover different layers of history. So in this way, even in smallest exhibition stands, even if in the selection of the material we wanted to do it in a contextual way, but of course not in an obvious way. And the rest of the exhibition spaces were made in a quite more delicate way. I'll put it this way. But also there's a part of the old synagogue that we were about to arrange. So our intervention right here, it just ended up by adding some exhibition stands. And during the construction works, all the existing old parts were moved and were removed from the walls. And suddenly we saw this kind of mosaic on walls. Some of them were lighter, some of them were darker, and so on. So the client said, okay, I think we have to paint it. And I said, no, let's just keep it this way. So even right here, when you see these traces of the history on the walls, I think it's quite interesting, and we only added some projections on those walls and so on, but the way also they tell us something about history, I think it's quite interesting. And I will tell you also one more thing, because it's the last exhibition project that we did. When I started this kind of interventions, sometimes artistic interventions, because sometimes we do our interventions according to the artworks. Sometimes we do exhibition projects for the artworks from past and so on. It's always kind of a approach that, like in the movies, like in films, there's a main character and then you have the second role character. We kind of played the second role, but of course, as you know from Oscars even, you may play this role quite well. But for me, it's always interesting to create some kind of dialogue and interaction between architecture and art. It's not neutral background. I know about this, but I think this kind of tension between the history and past, or the artwork and architecture, it's quite crucial. And then my history with architecture and art kind of started in some museums. I saw some exhibitions by Van Gogh and so on. I was very inspired by it. And then later on, when it turned out that although those exhibitions that you saw were frequented and were seen by more than 500,000 people, it's more than I ever imagined that our work will be perceived by so many people. I mean, if we did mostly the private commissions and so on, we would never have that kind of a frequency of people, and not so many people would be able to see those interventions. So I'm really happy to have the opportunity to do this kind of projects, and we continue to do them. Also, we continue to do more architecture. And I will show you some, I will take a look at the time. Okay, I'm finishing. And last projects I will show you are connected with different functions. Right here is a small cafe we did in Krakow. So right here the interventions are also quite minimal, but we concentrated even on this smallest part of the design of the frame that it's made around windows. And when the cafe is closed, it looks like that. When it's open, it looks like that. And then, of course, you can see in the historical architecture that this way of sitting next to each other and sitting close to each other near the window, it's quite obvious. You can find it anywhere in the world. But to reinvent it a little bit in a more modern way, it was our project. And right here you can see interiors of this cafe. Right here, the Golden Hall, which is a totally different space, quite a warm space that it's at the background. And right here, two projects that are concentrated on, let's call it, living. So it's this one is called Apartment of the Future. We were invited for some competition many years ago, and we managed to win this competition. And that's how it looks like. I think with the interior design and with housing, it works a little bit like that. That's, of course, you have some kind of fashion trends and so on. It changes almost each season. So we decided to do it totally different. We decided to do it as neutral as you can do. And a little bit we thought about it, you know, it works like this telephone. We all have the same almost the same, they look almost the same, but what changes is technology and what's inside of them. So we thought about the space in exactly the same way. So all the spaces that we can hide are done in this kind of cabinets. Then inside everything may change, the furniture and so on. And we prepared different scenarios how this space could look like. And in the end we thought, okay, so what's the differentiation in the space? How can we make it unique? So we created kind of a, let's call it artwork, movable artwork, that it's made out of natural plants, and they are just sunken in 3D panels in resin. But then these panels create the space, differentiate the space, divide the spaces, and they look different, you know, each time you move them. They also they work quite well acoustically, which I was quite surprised. And all the space is neutral, white, but you can also imagine that it would work quite well with some antiques, with some different furniture and so on. And the other thing, we had a chance to work with 3D artists and so on, and they did some 3D mapping and different ways of arrangement. So it was this dream that you can already see what you have inside your inside the shelf and inside your kitchen and so on. So that's the one thing. And in the other versions, we did also experiments how the space would look like in more subtle finishings, like with wood and so on. If you search in YouTube, there's a small film that shows this space in different finishes. So we started from a very neutral project, but we ended up with something that it's showing the possibilities how the space could look like. And the last project I'm going to show you, it's a kind of a personal project. It's a project that belongs to my family, and it is a project that I remember from my childhood. I remember while I was helping my father to build this small house and so on. So after some times we had this kind of a dilemma what to do afterwards, and how to deal with it after the loss. And then I decided, okay, that this process could be some kind of a challenge for me and some kind of a way to deal with the loss. And I decided to work on it myself. So I started to paint this house inside and the outside. I kind of discovered the proportions of this house once again when we started to draw it and so on. But it was a long process to do this kind of intervention. And then the main intervention in this project was this exterior cover. And it's also made with some kind of a reused material, but take a look at this structure and so on. And right here, it's the idea that also this space, this house can change, you know, during the unfolding and folding this external coating. So it was the idea that this architecture, the image of this architecture can change almost all the time, but also the process of doing it by myself, all the struggle that I had right there and so on, and the idea of doing architecture by yourself, to feeling, you know, this way of painting it, of doing it precisely, then to see how complicated it is even to do in this very small scale. It was very, very valuable for it. And I kind of want to show you, because it's a project that was made, you know, with almost no budget. It was very, very, very low budget in this project and so on. But for me, the same process was extremely valuable, and I really like this very small and very humble project. And this idea of designing for yourself, it's also quite interesting for me in the smallest scale. So we do a lot of design, and right here you can see these design projects. So sometimes we do some wine holders, sometimes some shelves, and the table. So you have this classical table, and what happens if you just remove one leg? So the table is made in something like 20 different versions, and in all the versions, this one leg is treated differently. And sometimes even you know, if you do a simplest thing like a coat rack, you can do it in a quite let's call it interesting way. But I treat it. It's not treated. You know, it's not a way of thinking commercially about these things. These are mostly things that I do for myself and that I use at my place. But as I told you, thinking generally about architecture in this micro and micro scale, I started from huge visions that we do, some urban designs, some public buildings, and so on. And then you have the possibility to do smaller things, so you treat it in a similar way or even in the same way, you know, conceptually, contextually, and with the certain sensitiveness. Okay, that's all. Thank you very much. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I will be happy to talk with you.
Thank you very much, Bartosz. I'm quite sure there will be questions, so we can start our discussion right now. Are there already? Yes. Cornelius.
Thank you very much for the project that you showed about the synagogue that you transformed into a public park. I see that it's kind of a tendency for most of these Jewish sites in Poland that they transformed, the sites that were destroyed, they were like the gravestones that were overturned or things like that, that they were transformed into public spaces. With this project of yours, how exactly does the layout of the stone tablets that you've made, how does that relate to the synagogue or to the memory of the space, or was it just by accident?
I will try to show this project. So what we started to do, the idea was to leave this place as it was before, because on the side of the former synagogue, it was already, you know, there were some trees and so on. So we wanted to leave this space as it was. This is better? Okay. So we wanted to leave the space as it was and to treat it as a green area. The synagogue was destroyed more than 8 years ago, so it was already a lot of time, and in the public perception and so on, this space lived as just as a public space. And we didn't. What we discussed with the client from the beginning, that we didn't want to do a project that is kind of really memorial. We wanted to mix this memorial function with just the public space and the place that you can just hang around and so on. So as you may see, we use it as a kind of a mixture of this kind of commemoration. Of course, there are a lot of meanings, a lot of different ideas combined in this project, but we based it mostly on this individual perception, and it's up to you how you react to this. You may just sit right there and then enjoy the summer or the spring, or you may have some time to think about this past. So the information about the place is mostly based in this exhibition stand, but then the rest serves as a public space, and the shape of the old synagogue is marked with this curb. And then inside this exhibition stand, you may see some information and the model of the old synagogue and so on. So the narrative aspect of the project is just minimized as much as we could. We did it this way. But if you want to know more, you just go right. It's something like maybe 200 meters, and you enter this museum that was also designed by our practice. So it works as a continuation, those two projects.
If I may continue perhaps with the synagogue when we have the image there already. So if I understood it correctly, the shape, this is the original, let's say, ground plan of the synagogue, and the stone tables, they are just like scattered around without any, let's say, rational reason, like this is not a kind of pattern that was already there, or what was the idea behind putting it like that, the layout of the stones?
Okay. Sometimes you just have to lose control, and that's the idea of the project. I mean, now seriously, it was the first inspiration was the image of the destroyed synagogue, and it was just a rumble of stones, and they were, you know, it was destroyed, and there was just rumble of stones without any order and without any rational explanation. And I'm speaking not only about, you know, the image that we have, but also about this tragedy that happened right there that has no rational explanation. I mean, and it's also a hard question, because we lived in the times while we designed this place. It seems that we speak about the past, and during the last years, you know, when you see the tragedies that are happening in Ukraine and right now in the Middle East, it seems like the subject is still very actual. So we're speaking about, you know, the ways of commemorating and relating to history. Right here, we decided to do this in a path that it's kind of a not non-literal, and we wanted to minimize this historical narrative as much as we could, and we wanted to combine it with just a public recreational space. But as I told you before, this seemingly chaos that you see right here, it's inspired just by one picture that we saw and that shows the destroyed synagogue. And sometimes it works just like that. You see one image, and one image, it's just inspiration for you. Of course, we try to do it because naturally we architects, we start with, we try to design it as much as we can. And the first version were quite regular and so on. And suddenly we came up with this thing, and I think it just works right there.
I absolutely do agree, it works. Okay, yeah, there are some other questions.
Or maybe if some students want to ask, no? Yes, thank you for this project, and thank you for the explanation. I think it's brilliant, and the way that, as you said, it's open for interpretation. But yeah, thanks for saying the thing about losing control. I really appreciate that. But I want to ask about the project you've shown at the beginning about the exhibition designs, because I think that the exhibition design is somehow similar to like scenography in a way, that it should create a platform for the play. So like the exhibition design is somehow like a canvas for the art piece to properly shine. And you even said that like you try to do it in a way that the art is the main character in this way, but like sometimes I was questioning like if that was really what the result was about. And so when there is where there is this like the top, like the limit, like when it's the boundary, when you would say that okay, this is too much, that we are like overshadowing the piece that we're actually showing, because it's like somehow, you know, you got me right. do you ever question that, or you don't? For me it was, but I don't want to like criticize your work, because
Thank you for the question. Of course, I understand your concern, and we also deal with it many times. But let me put it this way. It's always a question of the context. So the place that we work at, then the context of the things, of the artworks and of the artists ever. And then there's also these are remarks and questions and some clues that are given by our clients and so on. So it's a mixture of many different constraints, also the conservational constraints and so on. And most of the living artists and museum curators and so on would tell you that, okay, the optimal way of exhibiting the art, it's just a neutral white cube, white space. And as you saw in this exhibition by Rembrandt, this exhibition by Wyspiański, we used also a lot of this kind of spaces, because we know that this kind of approach, that it's appropriate for the certain artworks. But when we speak about the temporary exhibitions, and these are mostly temporary exhibitions, I think we are obliged to be a little bit more contextual and to react not only to the space, but also to the work of the artist. And then it's something like, you know, you come to the museum and you mostly see the same exhibitions that are focused, you know, only on art hung on the neutral white wall. And for me, the exhibition of art, it's totally not about it. And I think it's about simulating some kind of dialogue. And it's also about this image that you have. I understand that you may perceive it as a kind of a strong images, and sometimes this interactions between art and architecture are quite strong. But that was the idea. And then sometimes, that's what I told, when it turns out that this approach kind of works, because as I told you all, that all of those exhibitions were, you know, visited by more than 500,000 people, and this exhibition of Wyspiański was record-breaking, you know, in all the history of museum, National Museum in Krakow. You know, kind of directors and the curators want us to do it this way, and we do it. We like to do it this way. It's for us. It's also about this image and this memory that you have with you after visiting the exhibition, and I think it's really very important. And either it's just one small painting or the kind of images that I show you, I think if it works, it's worth it. And I'll tell you also the other anecdote about this Wyspiański exhibition in National Museum in Krakow, that we didn't expect it. I think nobody expected it to have such success. But then, if you see hundreds of young people visiting the exhibition, reacting to these artworks, but also to the architecture, and show it on social media and so on, even making tattoos with those patterns and so on. So then you see that somehow this approach works. So of course we wouldn't do every exhibition in this way, and sometimes we are kind of really in the background and we know where to do it, because even in this Wyspiański exhibition we had some spaces that are just neutral white and are adjusted to the works of art that were about his private life, showing his wife, his children, and so on. And then there was almost no architecture. But when we could, I think we should do it. And I also treat it a little bit as like in a movie, that you have the beginning, then the action, speeds up, then you have wow, and then you have grande finale, or you just slow down at the end. So I treat architecture a little bit like that. So you kind of differentiate the moods and the images.
Thank you. If there is immediately a question, please raise the hand. If not, I would like to continue with this exhibition concept, because I mean it's quite interesting, and there is another, let's say, tricky way behind, because it's always beautiful and imposing if you look at the images of the empty rooms, like you have only the installation, the architecture, and the pieces of art. But actually normal visitors, they never experience it in that way. You are a part of the crowd which is moving slowly or faster through all the spaces. So, I mean, it's a little bit like spoiled during the normal visit. So my question would be, if it is really like, what is actually the relation between the architect and if he is really, and the people who are, and the visitors, yeah, let's say, if you are really working with these crowds as well, having them in mind, or you are working with this absolute, let's say, art or space, because I was not able to see your exhibitions, unfortunately, but I remember when I visited the lady with the Hermine, and it was crazy what was going on there. It's in Krakow. They have lots of very important and expensive piece of old art, and there are crowds like waiting to see them. It's really wow. So how it is with crowds and architects?
Okay, it's a shame I couldn't show you these pictures, but you may also see it on in some publications of the spaces and so on. So we had some photo shoots that show really a lot of people inside of those spaces, and they are also, we also analyze them in this way, because normally during vernissage there are really hundreds of people right there during this. While we are starting with the exhibitions, and we even sometimes try to move the wall in that direction, move the space, move the I don't know, some kind of a part of the exhibition in that direction, to put it a little bit in a way, like you said it before, like a scenography, and to work on it like a certain scenario. So sometimes we can have the ability to work on it this way, that we kind of specifically direct the movement of people. So we, through the architecture, we can do it that they can move only in one way. And we did it in this Hokusai exhibition. So the walls direct you in a way. So it's kind of interesting concept that the walls direct your movements, the walls or those stone gardeners and so on. So that's one way. But on the other hand, like in Wyspiański exhibition, it was more freely arranged, and you could move, because it was a huge exhibition, either way you wanted. So I showed you the picture that there are people, walking in between those huge artworks, and I found it quite interesting because it looked, differently each time I went there and I saw it. So, people could walk around as in a different ways. And you can also find in internet there was some quite interesting concert during this Wyspiański exhibition, that the artists were moving throughout the different exhibition halls, and the public was moving, after them. And it was extremely interesting because, there were a lot of people, and it kind of looked like, the space also directs the movement, not only of the artist, but then the public.
I must confess that I'm a little bit agoraphobic, that this is perhaps my problem, my very personal problem with these kinds of spaces full of people. Questions, dear colleagues? Please. As you see, Bartosz is very, very interested in answering your questions, so would you give him some more? No, we are the only, how to say, the only people asking are now here in the front of the room. Okay, my very last question. I was wondering, when looking at your interior designs, what is actually the, because I will start it from the other way around. I mean, you are much to history, that you are really interested in studying historical contexts, etc. And when I was looking at the few interior designs that you showed at the end of the lecture, there was always in my mind these interiors by Hans Hollein from 1980s, all these inserted, walls and so if there is any kind of connection between your idea of interior and those, I mean, beautiful years of interior design in 1980s Europe.
It's always like that we search for as many different information as we can, and it's the same with the inspiration. And sometimes it's a funny part of the process that sometimes you just came by some idea and you cannot explain it a little bit. You cannot explain it totally rationally. It's just an intuition. And the older I am, the more intuitive I try that these designs are. And sometimes, as with for example, some of the exhibitions, I could explain all the details with the first project, the use of the copper wall and so on. And sometimes it's just, we just do it. We check different options, different options, and we decide on one, and that's all. And I think it's the beauty of this, of being an architect, that sometimes you just explain it on 1,000 different ways, and sometimes you just don't have to. I mean, you said about Hollein and so on, and we search for these clues in really extremely different fields. Sometimes it's architecture, sometimes it's nature, sometimes it's psychology, sometimes it's history and so on. Each of the project has quite a long description, and right there in those descriptions we kind of reveal our way of thinking. So it may be also interesting for you to find those descriptions, because mostly those international websites like Design Boom or the Zine and so on, they are based on, those publications are based on our texts. But then, as for example with this project, the Memorial Park, you can really have your own interpretation and own idea about the project, and I'm really happy about this thing, and also about hearing how other people perceive the spaces that we create, but also how other people react to it. So you said about some kind of a one field, but it's always that when we start a project, we do some kind of a brainstorm, and we kind of dive into the whole history of for example, the oeuvre of one artist and so on. So when we did a project for Rembrandt, we really were watching all the documentaries about him. We were driving throughout Europe to see his works and so on. So it was this kind of a long research process. When we did this library for Wyspiański, I traveled throughout different libraries, old libraries, contemporary libraries, and I kind of analyzed it. But that's the most interesting part of the project. I mean, the start and you know, searching for the path. And if it's the right path, I'm not the one to decide.
Okay, so we can say we are puff now, or not. Questions? Are there any? Okay, if not, then I'm finished with my questions. Bartosz, I would like to thank you once again to be with us and to having you. It was a pleasure for us, and yeah, give the dear architect the last applause. Thank you for coming.